Hey friends, Carmel Holt here. As you know, times are tough for public radio and audio. And as a tiny independent feminist production company that makes SHEROES for public radio and for this podcast, we're getting hit pretty hard with financial shortfalls. Simultaneously, this is a moment where women, trans folks, non-binary, and queer folks need a safe space to be heard. And at SHEROES, we're more committed than ever before to our mission of turning up the volume of underrepresented voices in music. But to keep going, I need your help. And I have big news. SHEROES has partnered with the nonprofit AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio, and we've launched our very first fundraising campaign. You can text SHEROES to 53555 to make a tax-deductible donation through AIR or visit SHEROESradio.com. Thank you for supporting independent, femme and queer-produced audio and storytelling like the episode that you're about to enjoy. It's up to us whose voices get heard, and with your help, we'll keep turning up the volume.
When I was a backup singer at 19, I'd play these festivals, and there were hardly any women. I remember I saw Portishead and Beyonce at some of these festivals, and Beyonce had an all-female band at that time, so obviously that day was different. But I remember being like, that is revolutionary. There's an all-girl band backing Beyonce. So it was like 2010. And I never forgot that. I never forgot how amazing that was. And so I would say that has changed, that there's just more women being represented in a public-facing thing. Festivals and record labels aren't like, when I was making music back then, which wasn't even that long ago, but it's crazy how much things have changed. It'd be like, oh, well, Courtney, we can't sign you because we just signed a girl. Like, that was real. That happened all the time.
That was Courtney Marie Andrews, and this is SHEROES, a weekly podcast to amplify women, non-binary, and gender-expansive voices in music across genres and generations. We believe that sharing our stories is the first step to making music better for everyone. I'm Carmel Holt. Last time Phoenix-born, Nashville-based artist Courtney Marie Andrews visited us here on SHEROES, we were celebrating the release of her critically hailed 9th album, Loose Future. And both the sound of that album and its title evoked a sense of openness, possibility, and, if taken literally, maybe a self-fulfilling prophecy. Courtney Marie Andrews began playing guitar in her early teens and performing by the time that she was 15. At 19, she started working with the band Jimmy Eat World. And from 2010 to 2011, she became an auxiliary member of the band, appearing on their studio album Invented and touring with them as their keyboardist and backing vocalist. After that, she was a touring guitarist for Damien Jurado, and all the while she was writing, recording, and releasing her own music. The turning point of Courtney's career came in 2016 with her 6th album, Honest Life. And over the course of the last decade, her work has been critically hailed and award-nominated. May Your Kindness Remain was released in 2018, and 2020's Old Flowers earned a Grammy nod for Best Americana Album. Loose Future saw Courtney Marie Andrews tapping into her musical knowledge, roots, and influences that were way more expansive than just the folk Americana genre that the previous 3 albums had led newcomers to categorize her as. We can no more place Courtney in a box of musical genre than we can limit her artistry to music alone. She's not only a musician, but she's also a painter and a published author of 2 books of poetry. Her second book, Love is a Dog That Bites When It's Scared, was just released in August of 2025. And this week we celebrate the arrival of her 10th studio album, Valentine. Once again, we discover her creativity flourishing and expanding with her fearlessness. I'm so thrilled to welcome back Courtney Marie Andrews as this week's SHERO in the Spotlight. Welcome back to SHEROES, Courtney Marie Andrews.
Yay! Great to see you again.
I'm so happy to have you here, and on such a happy occasion of your 10th album. What the heck?
What the heck?
How do you have 10 albums already?
I don't know.
10 albums, 2 books, how many paintings? You probably never sleep.
I do somehow sleep, but
And you tour. So the last time I caught up with you on a record was 2022 for Loose Future. Oh, that album. I love that album so much. But now I think this might be my favorite.
Aw.
Valentine. Wow, Courtney. It's incredible.
Thank you so much.
Let's catch up. How did Loose Future lead to Valentine? Like, what was the connecting tissue there?
I would say that the sonic exploration was the connecting tissue that I've just sort of like more and more been interested in creating sounds that are interesting to me or not trying to make the same record over and over again. But as far as like the actual content of the lyrics, I would say couldn't be any more different mindset that I was in making both records. I was sort of like in this freedom place in my life when I was making Loose Future. Even though it was a dark period for the world, I was just personally in a very healing place. And, then obviously it just had to all come crumbling down.
As it does.
As the first track of the record talks about, Pendulum Swing. It's sort of like things were good for a long time, and then things have to balance out. The light and the dark always have to sort of, teeter. So.
Yeah, it's kind of that law of like what goes up must eventually come down, I guess.
Yeah, and seasons,
And seasons,
I think
yes.
we all have seasons in our life, and that was clear that these two records were made in very different seasons in my life.
And interesting to think about, you started off by saying that the connective tissue was almost more freedom, getting more and more free sonically, right? And then you said, but this is very different lyrically because I was in a very free place then. But the exploration continued. You've been giving yourself more and more freedom in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's in that way, I think the record kind of becomes, it's this more defiant thing, this confidence that I think one can only gain by growing older, It's just this thing that all happens to us. We're like, actually, this is me and that's fine,
Yeah. Yeah, it's the zero fucks given chapters that start to happen more and more.
Yeah, exactly.
Something to look forward to with age.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Since you've already sort of set up Pendulum Swing, I feel like it's a good place for us to start also in terms of spinning a little clip of this album and getting people acquainted with it. Anything else you want to tell us before we get into the song? Set the scene, maybe where you were, the studio, like what we could envision as this album opens up.
Yeah. Well, we by coincidence recorded it at Valentine Recording Studios in LA, which was really quite hilarious and coincidental. And we recorded it in 10 short days to 16-track tape. And it was pretty much just Jerry and I playing all the instruments. So it was a whirlwind of chaos to make this record, but it was worth it, I'd say.
That's Pendulum Swing, track number 1 from the Courtney Marie Andrews album, Valentine, her 10th studio release. She's our guest today on SHEROES, and I'm Carmel Holt. And you stole my question, and I'm glad. I love that when that happens. I was going to ask which came first, the name of the record, or did you get the name of the record from being in Valentine Studios? And you said it was a coincidence, and that's wild.
Yeah, it was definitely pretty wild. It was just like this word sort of crept up. And not very long after, we met up with this engineer that we just knew had to engineer the record. And he was like, I know this great studio. It's still kind of up and coming, but it's been around for a long time. It's called Valentine. And I was like, are you kidding me? And then last day of recording, kid you not, walking down to get coffee in Los Feliz, and this person oddly had a box of Hot Wheel cars in their yard to give away for free.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, the garbage bin I'm like, I'll grab one of these gross Hot Wheel cars. Picked it up, and it was a VW Bug, and it said Valentine across the the door. And I was like, it's Valentine. It's got to be Valentine. If that's not a true sign, then nothing is.
Oh my God, where is that bug? Where do you have
I have
that
it
now?
actually in this here. 1 second.
Oh my God, you have to show me.
Show and tell. 1 second.
Show and tell, please.
You can't see it on this camera, but it says Valentine on this little part.
Oh my God. That is insane.
So weird.
So weird. So cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I love this story. And Valentine, like the word doesn't show up anywhere on the album either. So it's not like, you pulled that out of, probably not out of the ether. There's a reason for it. And I'd love to know what the reason is.
Yeah. It's the first record that I haven't had a word, from a song or a title be the title. But it just felt right. And the reason is Valentine is like a word that often evokes darkness. I don't think people hear the word Valentine and think, oh, Valentine, like that's so lovely and light. It weirdly has this sort of like dark undertone to it, which I felt like the record was. It's maybe sounds up in some ways, but it always has a sort of like dark undertone. And also, it's the symbol of love. It's this really shallow thing that you're given, but something that you throw away,
Yeah.
And during that time, I was like, that's love. And actually, while making it, while writing it, while playing it, while listening to it back, I was like, actually, love is so much more than that. It's something that's built over years. It's something that is gained with trust. It's not actually this shallow thing you receive. And so I think like the Valentine was just like the symbol of like what I thought love was when I was younger, and something that I was desperate to have, but it's so much more.
Right. There's a little bit of a like loss of innocence kind of a thing, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the story of writing the songs for Valentine?
Yeah. Well, I was writing, this is honestly during this period is probably one of my most potent creative times in my life. But it was also at the same time, maybe this definitely happens to a lot of people, I think, but it was personally one of the most sort of like the death of an era in a lot of ways. A family member of mine was given a terminal diagnosis, and I was the only person available to caretake for them.
Wow.
And so I was dealing with this person who I grew up with, their imminent death, while also starting a very rocky new relationship that was not sure. And it was just this sort of reckoning with my past and maybe this person that had led me to these patterns, while also like experiencing the birth of this new thing and reckoning with like what has led me to these patterns of like reckoning with maybe what's not okay, And so the record is that actually in like order. It's like I'm falling in love, and by side B, it's like everything's falling apart and I'm reckoning with why. Best Friend was written about my 7-year-old self, and Outsider was written about this kind of like intense loneliness I've felt, or outsiderness I felt a lot of my life. So yeah, sorry if I explained too much, but that's
No, it's a beautiful explanation. And it also helps to give more context and framework to the album, which when you said, side A and side B, very two distinct halves of the record, you can tell that. Like this album is really an album in that it's meant, I think, to be listened to from track 1 to track 10, even if you're not listening on vinyl, and you can feel that at Little Picture of a Butterfly, that this is kind of an apex moment.
Yeah. It's funny how when you write songs and make these things that you don't even realize sometimes what you're doing.
Right.
And subconsciously, and then you listen back and you're like, well, you kind of can apply meaning to it in this strange way. And in Little Picture of a Butterfly, there's like this sort of meditation almost in the beginning and the very end. When I recorded that take, I didn't know really what I was doing when I was going to end it, but I just kept going on the organ. I was just like, I'm just going to keep going. And what I realized was that, subconsciously, I was actually like meditating in this way, meditating on this like realization, like this possible goodbye and what goodbye means to me. And then it sort of ends in this jam of of flutes and strange sounds and pianos and the organ. And yeah, it's so interesting how that can happen when you're making a record, when you're making a song, that you're subconsciously letting this music tell the story.
I think I'd love to play a little bit of Little Picture of a Butterfly. And since it's also quite a long song, should we go to that second half end of the song, or should we play more of the beginning? Guide us.
Maybe like the beginning into when it hits the moment of realization, the sort of like underbelly slow part, and then when the drums kick in, it feels like you're kind of like waking up, and that's sort of the feeling I had when writing the song. After all that time went by, like some widow to this big old mess.
That's Little Picture of a Butterfly. It's the halfway point of Courtney Marie Andrews' incredible new album, Valentine, her 10th studio release. She is our guest today on SHEROES, and I'm Carmel Holt. You mentioned the flutes and some of the instrumentation going in, and I wanted to talk about that. I know that flute was something that you hadn't played, right, since you were a kid? Like, how did that come back in, and how did that feel, especially in the context of what we've been talking about, of recognizing patterns and revisiting childhood stuff?
Yeah. The past few years I've like leaned into this Picasso quote, which I'm paraphrasing because he actually says the name of a painter that I can't remember, but he says, "It took me 4 years to paint like the great painter and a lifetime to paint like a child." And I think so much of why I paint and got into poetry is to feel childlike again about art and to not be so honed in. And so when I pulled out my flute, which, by the way, I hated playing flute in the 5th grade. It was not the instrument I wanted to play. It was the only instrument my mother could find for a cheap cost at a pawn shop. And so that's the instrument I got. I wanted to play the fiddle, the violin. That was my dream, but I got the flute and I had to learn the flute. And I ended up being second chair, but I would pass out because it would make me very dizzy when I played it because I didn't have the right technique.
Breath. Yeah.
But anyway, I pulled it out as a sort of joke, like, oh, well, we don't know what's going to go here. Let's do flute. Let's see what happens. And we ended up loving it. And I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And that was so fun. I was just like seeing what happened if I blew a couple notes in different positions, but truly had not played the instrument since I was in 5th grade. And so it was kind of just this like fun, freeing, like as we're going into the exploration of these patterns of my childhood, of my child self, I'm going to play something that I had to play as a kid. And it was just kind of this fun, like accidental thing.
And you put it on tape. I mean, like, that's the coolest thing about this is like, it wasn't just like a lark that you did at a party or by yourself or whatever, or even just to test it out and then put it away. You committed to it.
I committed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the more I played it, the more I was like, this is so fun and hilarious. And I don't know. It's just, it felt very fun and freeing. Which I think is ultimately what we're always like. It's why we record a tape. Like, how can we get more free in our mistakes, in our like imperfections? And
What do you think you gained? Because as you said at the start of our conversation, like Loose Future sort of marked this newfound sonic freedom exploration for you. And this is building on that. What do you think that you took from that and carried into Valentine? And what new areas or what new horizons did you find or explore on this record?
Well, I think like ultimately the start of this was purely a time thing. Like when I made Loose Future with Sam Evian, we had so much time to play and to think about what sounds we wanted to exist. And I think ultimately I realized like in the beginning of my career, I was all about finding weird sounds. I was kind of more interested in like that than the more I got into, these traditional records, that these great songwriter records. I kind of put that down for a minute. And so when I was working with Sam, it was like I actually unlocked this like younger version of myself who was into punk and who was into alternative DIY music and who was kind of into like the more arty version of things. And so Sam, he's such a kind soul and no idea is turned down. And I think that sort of was really healing to be around that energy, and then kind of just carried that on into Valentine. And Jerry is the same way. It's like no ideas off the table. Actually, the weirdest ideas are the most welcome. And I think that is just super, super exciting.
Let's help our listeners understand who Jerry Bernhardt is, too.
Yeah. So I met Jerry. He was in my band. He was actually a fill-in, and then we just really connected musically in a way that I hadn't really connected with someone, and we just have different enough tastes to complement each other, but then similar enough tastes to where we're not arguing all the time. And so, it was kind of this magical meeting of minds, and he had produced a couple records beforehand and was kind of wanting to explore that even more. And it just felt very organic to have him as the co-producer.
And you worked with Chris Bear from Grizzly Bear again, which is awesome. I just love his playing so much.
He's so great. And he has that really rare quality of somebody who's very good at their instrument, but also is like, how can I turn this instrument on its head and not play it like I'm good at it? If that makes any sense. Like he's very creative with his playing.
That's amazing. I wanted to circle back to something that you said. It's not new, this exploration, but it's a reconnection to your younger self that was into punk and DIY and more exploratory, which again fits right in with these overall themes that we've been touching on in all these different ways. How much of your self-imposed and maybe even imposed on you, who knows? Sometimes it's hard to know which is which, where the lines are, limits on yourself or fitting into molds, do you associate with your gender? Like, do you think there was/is any part of the music making to find the freedom, to reconnect with that kind of journey and the difficulty in kind of getting back to that? Does any of that strike a chord in you when I throw in the word gender? Like, at all?
I mean, I would say that the reason it took me so long in my 20s, which wasn't a long time, but for me it was, for as long as I'd been doing it, it was a long time. The reason it took me so long is because of how many difficult run-ins I had with that, with being taken advantage of, and also maybe even being like exploited or something, or not being taken seriously enough because you're a girl, you can't do this. And it took all of those things happening in my 20s, all these different like hardships regarding that exact thing, to say, you know what, I'm producing a record myself and I'm making it myself on my own terms. And that record ended up being a record I made called Honest Life, which ended up allowing me to make a career. I was a bartender, I was a backup singer when I got the opportunity, but I was really just like struggling to get by and not able to do what I wanted to do, which was make records full time. And so, yes, absolutely. I mean, it took, I would say, 8 years of me like battling this sort of thing in so many different ways to say, I'm doing it on my own terms, basically.
Is there anything that you would feel comfortable elaborating on? Like in what
Yeah.
areas you came up against
I
that?
signed a really predatory record deal when I was a
Mm.
kid with kind of a very scary older man that I had to get out of. Had to get out of that deal. And then I just had a lot of people, older male producers try and make me into the next pop sensation or whatever, that sort of thing, and I didn't have enough confidence at that time. I had enough confidence to say no, that I don't want to do that, but I didn't have enough confidence to be like, I could do it on my own until I did, until I had enough and I was like, I'm just going to do it. And so, yeah, especially as a younger woman, I feel so much empathy for that. And especially at that time, it was like pre-Me Too. None of these conversations were really being had. And if they were, you were anonymous,
Right,
And
right.
so it was, I struggled with that a lot. And I'm actually grateful for it because in a way, I don't think I would have had the confidence or I shouldn't say I'm grateful for it, but I'm glad that I was strong enough to sort of understand what was happening eventually,
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
everybody has that, but I'm glad that I was and that I made the records. I kept my integrity in place. And, it's like the Lucinda Williams line, take the glory any day over the fame.
Yes.
And I'm super glad that I did that. But yeah, there was a lot of that in that time. And there still is, unfortunately.
Well, that's interesting. You just said that, add that kind of footnote, because my next question was going to be, see, you keep stealing my questions, which is great. My next question was going to be, so what about now? How would you say, because Honest Life is in 2026, 10th anniversary of that album, which is crazy. Got a lot of tens going on. I like that numerology.
Yeah.
So in that decade between Honest Life and Valentine, how would you say things have progressed? And how would you say things have still remained a challenge or a struggle
Well,
as a woman?
when I was a backup singer at 19, I'd play these festivals and I could count on both hands how many women I would see in either the background, like the crew, or on stage. And I was one of those women. And now I will say that has changed quite immensely, which is amazing. And obviously, certain genres of music are better than others for
Right.
that change.
Right.
But it has changed. I do believe that. Because when I was playing these festivals, I mean, there were hardly any women. I remember seeing Portishead, and it made such a mark on me. I saw Portishead and Beyonce at some of these festivals. And Beyonce had an all-female band at that time, so obviously that day was different. But I remember being like, that is revolutionary. There's an
Yeah.
all-girl band backing Beyonce. So it was like 2010.
Wow.
And I never forgot that, even if like, it's like, I never forgot, that how amazing that was. And so I would say that has changed, that the representation, there are just more women making music now, or not even making music. There're just more women being represented
Right.
in a public facing thing. Festivals and record labels aren't like, when I was making music back then, it was, which wasn't even that long ago, but it was, it's crazy how much things have changed. It'd be like, oh, well, Courtney, we can't sign you because we just signed a girl. Like,
Right.
that was real. That happened all the time. And so I guess overall, just representation, and so many more like sound women. Like we did a tour 2 years ago, and every venue we had a female front of house, and I was like, this never happened. Like
Wow.
it was amazing. And so, yeah, I just think that is the main thing I've seen change. And obviously, like country radios, I've heard, I don't know, really listen to it, so I don't can't say from firsthand experience, but
Yeah.
I know that it's primarily still men, and obviously there's, like I said, some genres that are not great for it, but overall, just a lot more women being represented in all the roles.
Yeah, that is so good to hear, and definitely a ton of progress. I'm so happy to hear the great progress report on women in tech, too, because we're going to do the SHEROES Magic Wand Wish at the end, where you get to make a wish about what to change in the industry. And I would say in large part, people come to the show and when they get that question say, I'd like to see more women behind the boards. I'd like to see more women producers,
More producers.
women sound. Yes, more women producers. I don't know
Yes.
what, like we are so stuck. So
I know.
I don't know why.
That is one that is not really shifted. Obviously, there's a
Yeah.
couple great ones, but like really not. Engineers and producers are still quite lacking in that department.
Yeah. So we definitely have some work to do there. How about for yourself personally? Is there anything for you that you feel like is still a work in progress when it comes to your gender and doing this job?
I think that there are still covert ways that this is manifesting.
So it's more on a subtle level than like overt things.
I think so. I mean, obviously, there's still crazy things that get said every day. This is all generalizations, in my opinion. But I think that I have not seen yet a great female artist or writer blow up in a way that some of these male artists have in a crazy way. And I don't know why that is, but it's like you don't see very many females like playing stadiums all of a sudden overnight, which is happening again and again with male artists. And I don't know why, other than that maybe we still haven't gotten to the place that we need to as a society.
Right.
Because I don't think it's talent. I don't think that's it. I think women are writing the best songs right now. But it's just still kind of like this weird covert thing where maybe it's just we haven't shed that thing. Like it's happening on like an active level in the industry, but it's not happening in like on a fan level, I guess, yet. And I think there are a lot of fans that are supporting great female artists, but not in this like huge popular way. I can't really think of one that's an artist or a writer that's blown up like a Zach Bryan has, for instance, or something, which is no, shade to anybody who has. It's just interesting to me that females haven't experienced that yet.
Right. Unless you're in the pop genre.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Which typically requires you to look very beautiful.
Hypersexualized.
Yeah. And I it's interesting.
That is interesting. We could.
Yeah.
That's probably like a whole other podcast episode.
I know.
But point well taken. As you were talking about women writing good songs, I was thinking, okay, well, this might be a great segue back to talking about Valentine and getting into another song, because I wanted to compliment you on your song craft. Not that there was anything wrong with it before. It's always been amazing. And I feel like this album feels like another quantum leap forward in its craft. When I say that it's an album, like an album to listen to from start to finish, can I nerd out a little bit?
Yeah,
Is that okay? Okay. So this is always like a very fun thing for me when this happens. I always just a little like probably boring BTS, but in getting ready to talk to a guest, I'll do kind of like a first listen. I call it kind of a cursory listen where I might be doing something else. Like maybe I'm cooking dinner or I'm driving in my car, which is my favorite place to listen to music. But I'm not sitting there like you did back in the day with like the lyrics in front of you, only doing that active listening and reading lyrics. I kind of save that towards the end. And then I'll go back like a couple of different times doing the more casual. Then I get deeper and deeper. And then, okay, now I've kind of got it, but now I'm going to really dive in deep. So, and then when I get to that part, it's always so fun when I'm like, I start to play detective. I'm like, okay, so are there any common threads? Is there an arc here? Like, are there words that repeat? And I got to see this happened recently too. I think it was with like Jen Wasner's most recent record, Flock of Dimes. And I pointed it out to her too. And she was like, I'm so glad you saw that. Like, there was a few instances of like, okay, from Cons and Clowns, track 3, you say, if only you could see that magic I see. And then it goes into Magic Touch, which I thought was amazing. And then Everyone Wants to Feel Like You Do, track 7, you say, you're not sorry for the space you take. And then that's a callback to Cons and Clowns, where you say, don't make yourself small, baby, take up space. And then on track 8, Only the Best for Baby, which is one of my personal favorites on this record. Only the best for baby. I give only the best to baby, only the best, which leads to best friend. I was just like, okay, this is awesome. Like, it's just, unless you sit there and read the lyrics and get super nerdy like I am, that might not hit. But like on a subtle level, it contributes to that connective tissue from song to song. Was that deliberate? Did you know that? Talk to us about that.
You know, I think it's so funny you say that, because if anything, I would be like, uh-oh, I said best friend and I said best and only the best for baby. And now I'm saying best friend. Like, I think my actual original feeling was that a fear, like, you know, they say in poems or in songs, I've heard before, there's people who have these rules, like you don't repeat the word.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
And I think, if anything, it was like this probably like shame, like, but it just made sense. It only could be, we sequenced this record so much.
Yes.
And by the end, it was like, this has to be the sequence. And so it just was clear, and it just happened that that's how it worked. And then as far as like Cons and Clowns and Everyone Wants to Feel Like You Do, it's like they're very much about two very different kinds of people. But there are people that you feel like should take up more space because they're so, you know, meek. And then there are people who do take up too much space. Like, and Everyone Wants to Feel Like You Do.
Yes.
And they're just two different characters, you know. That
it's like the two sides of the coin or something. Like, yeah.
And it's side A, side B.
Yes, exactly.
I love that you found that, though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like the nerd in me. And there is such an art to sequencing. And that's what I should have just started by saying, but the words eluded me in the moment.
No, I thank you for your astute listening. It's very appreciated these days.
It's my absolute pleasure, especially when it's this gorgeous. I shouted out my favorite track, but I wanted you to pick one. Where would you like to go next?
You know, one song on this record that I feel like in another universe I would have loved to have been like a single was Outsider. It's a very simple song. You know, it's not even like, as a songwriter, that I would say it's like the most profound or whatever as a writer, but it felt really profound to me to write it. It felt like something that I had been wanting to say in a song for a long time. And I finally got to say it.
Do you want to tell us what that was? I know you...
Just that I think every human probably feels like that, because you can only really be in your own body. Some people tend to feel a little bit more, but just that if you feel like an outsider or a misfit or something like that, that you're kind of your whole life, you're almost afraid to fit in. And so you build up these walls to not fit in, and you have all these excuses not to as well. And I feel like I just finally got to the core of that feeling, like you kind of subvert and make yourself not fit in because that's how you feel internally. And I think we all have experienced that. I think a lot of artists are more cognitively aware that they feel like that, which is why they make art.
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like, leading into Little Picture of a Butterfly, where I am so upset, and then immediately I build my walls with Outsider. And that sort of was a nice realization. Not nice, just a real realization. You can ask me to hang up.
That's Outsider. So we flipped the record now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the first song on side B of the new Courtney Marie Andrews album, Valentine, her 10th studio album. She's our guest today on SHEROES, and I'm Carmel Holt. I mentioned that I was nerding out about lyrics and sequencing and repeated words or repeated themes. I did notice Hollywood and Los Angeles coming up a couple of times. And I know that this was a California-made record. You live in Nashville, though, now, right?
Yeah.
What's all the Hollywood? What's the Los Angeles significance to Valentine?
Well, I grew up in Phoenix, and LA always seemed this sort of like magical mecca that I would end up in someday. And I think it's kind of always remained a fantasy in my mind because I've never lived there full time. I've spent several months there. I've kind of lived there, a lot. And I've made this sort of pilgrimage every year. In January, I'm generally driving to LA on New Year's. And it's sort of this safe fantasy place in my mind because I've never, settled down with LA. It's just remained this this sort of dream, And I've kept it that way, maybe for the best. But yeah, it's a place that I feel endlessly inspired by. And it's a place of dreams that has an underlying darkness, like this record. And so I wrote a lot of songs there. Like I said, I've pilgrimaged out there every January for the past 5 years. And I write so much when I'm there. Just so inspired by LA, by California.
But this was the first album you recorded there, right?
No, I recorded Old Flowers there. And May Your Kindness Remain.
Okay. All right. So third record that you made.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I love it. I love recording there. Because it's my fantasy world.
It's your fantasy world. Yeah. I guess I was wondering, it's not just an arbitrary thing where you decide to record a record. I mean, I guess maybe sometimes it is. It's a convenience thing or a budget thing, or that's where the person that you want to work with decides to bring the recording process. I guess a bunch of factors can come in, but why Los Angeles? Why California for Valentine, as opposed to retreating to the woods, like you did for the last record?
I think I love, historically, I love California music. I've always been a California country person. I love Fleetwood Mac. I love, I love California music so much. And I love the sounds that are made there. And, I've never recorded in Nashville because I never want a more traditional sounding song that I might write to be in the hands of traditional musicians. I've always loved working with the jazz drummer or working with the synth lord, I love what somebody who doesn't have that sort of foundation of music, somebody who's maybe pushing genres forward or not even living in a genre that I would maybe listen to, see what they can do with the music. And I just feel like California in general has that. There's just sort of more of a progressive line in music. And yeah, that's really interesting to me because I kind of write songs that if they were sung by a different singer might be placed in a different era or something like that. And
totally.
I want to make modern music. So it's my way to sort of be more with the times.
Yeah. And it also makes sense given how holistic you are with your art, because it's not just a one-dimensional thing and it's not just in one artistic expression either, The fact that you paint and you write poetry, and I'm sure there's more that we don't even know about that you do as your practices. Talk to us a little bit about that side of your creative life. And also, I want to congratulate you on your second book of poetry. Congratulations on that. It's
Thanks
amazing.
So
like published poetry. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I feel very, very grateful to have stumbled upon the knowledge that you can just do what's in your heart. And that doesn't have to look like anything. It doesn't have to look like anyone. I feel very grateful to have explored all these avenues and to continue to be inspired by them.
When you write poetry, like how do you know that it's a poem and not a song?
Classic.
So that's a classic question.
Yes, it's a great question. And it is so weird to explain, but it is just sort of this knowing. The way I've described it before is that poems almost feel like this bird's eye view, like this philosopher like peering down and being like, this is your life. And it's just like this zoomed out thing. And songs have always been this personal, quiet conversation, something I might tell a friend, late night. Yeah, and poems feel like this other voice that's almost trying to teach me how to live or teach me about my own life, And that's the only way I've been able to describe them. But they always feel like different voices. They're like in different accents,
Because Love is a Dog That Bites When It's Scared, which is your collection of poetry that came out in summer 2025. When was this album recorded?
24.
So can you put the two in a timeline? And is there any connections to those two pieces that we should know? Because they're so close in proximity.
Absolutely. They were so much written during the same time. And they're exploring a lot of the same themes. And I think, like I said, at that time I was feeling so much. And I needed any medium I could get to express these things. And so I have a huge series of paintings and this collection of poems and this album and probably like 2 albums more of material written during this time that was just circulating. It was my sort of way to ground during the chaos.
How are we going to get to experience them together? Is there any, I don't know, I feel like Courtney, we need to get you an immersive experience kind of a situation.
Well, we've actually done some like kind of secret listening shows where I've done all 3. Like I've shown the paintings, I do poetry as banter, and I perform the songs. And those have felt the closest to, this period of my life. So I'm trying every chance I get to showcase all of it at the same time because it really is all meant to be together. Mm-hmm. But I do read poems at shows now, which helps. But getting the paintings to the shows is the next step, which is harder than it keeping them like not broken or scratched. Yeah.
Projections. We need projections.
Yeah, projections. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you read us a poem now?
Oh,
Would
man.
that be hard to do?
No, oh my gosh. I actually have it right next to me.
You have it right there. Amazing.
Yay. Yes, I can absolutely do that. Let's see. Which poem to read? I'll read. Let's see. I will read this poem. Our Street. Will you follow me there to the dead-end street that is commitment? Our house will be the charming one on the block. It has character, they will say. A little crooked, but one of a kind. Unconventional, yet safe and still. I promise I won't grow cilantro in the garden. Only tulips, my love, and a Japanese maple. The bikes won't rust. We will ride them often. I will sing in the mornings while you're still sleeping. Songs about us, loved ones too. You'll play piano at night as I fall asleep, and we will both agree it's about time we get this thing tuned.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
It's called Our Street?
Our Street, yeah.
Is there a song on the album that connects with that particular
Doesn't connect
poem?
directly, but it's in the love song bunch, so it'd probably be like Magic Touch or Cons and Clowns.
You
Like
pick.
the album, the book sort of all falls apart as well, and then you get into the sort of heartbreak numbers.
Pick a song that's a good follow-up to Our Street.
I guess Magic Touch.
Los Angeles is such a drag.
Magic Touch from the amazing new album by Courtney Marie Andrews. Our guest today on SHEROES, the new album is called Valentine, her 10th studio release. Are we going to see flute on the tour?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the live show if you can. If you can't, that's okay too, but I know you're heading out on tour.
Yeah, I'm bringing the band. It's going to be a 4-piece. And it's kind of going to be the same concept as recording the album. Jerry and I are switching between all the instruments that we played on the album, and everyone in the band sings. So we're going to try our best to recreate the madness that we put down in the studio. But it'll be its own version too, you know?
Yeah. Courtney, it's been amazing to have you. I wanted to make sure that we left time for, speaking of Magic Touch, making some magic here on SHEROES. If I could hand you a SHEROES magic wand, first wave of the wand, you could change anything in the music industry for women, for non-binary folks, for queer folks, for anybody that doesn't have an equal voice or an equal platform yet. First thought, best thought, what would you change?
I would make it so that every one of these people who are trying to survive just doing their art, that they could do it. I don't know what that would mean, but survival as an artist, more than anything, is the kind of ideal peak thing that can happen. All the other stuff comes and goes, but if you can just be an artist and be free to be an artist without worry, that's the best thing that can happen.
May it be so.
Yeah.
Courtney Marie Andrews, thank you for being with us. Thanks for coming back. It's always so great to have you here. Man, how do we go out today? Do we go with the first half or the second half? What song? What song feels good to go out
Have
with
we already
today?
played Everyone Wants to Feel Like You Too? Did we already do that one?
I
No.
don't think so.
We'll go with that one.
You're not sorry. Everyone wants to feel like you.
But thanks once again to Courtney Marie Andrews. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Massive thanks to Courtney Marie Andrews for being with us. Her 10th album, Valentine, is available now. SHEROES is produced by me, is mixed and mastered by Kelly Drake. Our original theme music is by Lucius. Our podcast is distributed by Talkhouse. SHEROES is also a nationally syndicated radio show. Please visit SHEROESradio.com to find out more. Keep in touch on Instagram at SHEROES Radio, and please consider leaving us a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also subscribe to our new YouTube channel, SHEROES Productions. SHEROES is 100% independent and is made possible through the support of our public radio affiliates and now listeners like you. Through a new partnership with the nonprofit AIR, the Association of Independents in Radio, we've launched our very first fundraising campaign. Text SHEROES to 53555. That's SHEROES to 53555 to make a tax-deductible donation through AIR or visit SHEROESradio.com. Thank you for supporting independent, femme, and queer-produced audio and storytelling. And until next time, remember, music is our superpower. I'm Carmel Holt. Thanks for listening. Also from SHEROES Productions, take a journey on the road to Joni, an Ambie Award-nominated 10-episode series celebrating the legacy and impact of Joni Mitchell. Distributed by Talkhouse. Subscribe now to The Road to Joni wherever you get your podcasts.